Yes, this is an agreement to cooperate. The United States of America, by and through J.P. McCloskey, Assistant U.S. State's Attorney for the District of Maine, and Robert Kenney, acting for himself and through his counsel, Richard Estabrook, enter into the following agreement based upon the promises and understandings set below. Robert Kennedy is presently under a 3-count indictment in the case of United States versus John Cunningham et al., criminal number 820028B, United States District Court, District of Maine. Robert Kennedy agrees to enter a plea of guilty to this indictment. Robert Kennedy agrees to enter a plea of guilty to 2 indictments, which are expected to be returned in the District of Massachusetts, one of which involves a smuggle of marijuana on or about July 1981 in the District of Massachusetts using the vessel the Miss Roberta, and the second involves an attempted smuggle of marijuana on or about June 1982 in the District of Massachusetts using the vessel the Disco Mariner. If Robert Kennedy so desires, the United States Attorney's Office for the District of Maine and Massachusetts will agree to have the Massachusetts indictments transferred to Maine for disposition pursuant to Rule 20 of the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure. The purpose of this agreement is to secure the cooperation of Robert Kennedy with the United States in order to further the investigation and prosecution of those persons involved in the illegal drug trade. Robert Kenney understands that the United States is conducting an investigation into the violation of various federal laws by persons involved in the illegal drug trade. The United States believes that Robert Kenney has information regarding criminal acts of his co-defendants and other persons who have not been indicted in regard to the illegal importation and distribution of drugs. Robert Kenney agrees to meet with the agents of the government as designated by the Assistant U.S. Attorney J. McCloskey as needed to tell fully, honestly, and truthfully and completely all that he knows or has heard about concerning violations of federal law, including but not limited to his involvement and the involvement of others, and to answer all related questions in the same manner. He agrees to provide the government or aid the government in acquiring all documents, photographs, bills, records, receipts, and all like manner material which he has in his custody or to which he has access, which will corroborate his information. Robert Kenney further agrees to testify fully, honestly, truthfully, and completely at any and all grand juries, trials, or court proceedings in which his testimony is needed in the District of Maine or any other federal district. Robert Kenney agrees to meet with designated government officials or attorneys in preparation for such testimony at grand juries, trials, or other court proceedings. It is understood that should any of the information provided by Robert Kenney reveal any other violations of the Drug Abuse Prevention and Control Act, Title 21, United States Code, Section 801, etc., except those indictments mentioned in paragraph 1 or 2, in which he is expected to plead guilty, it will be deemed as having been given under the use immunity and could not be used against him. He shall not receive use immunity regarding his involvement in the case of United States versus Cunningham et al., or his participation in the marijuana conspiracies, importations, possession with intent to distribute, and attempt thereof with regard to such incidents involving the vessel Miss Roberts on or about July 1981 in the District of Massachusetts, and the vessel Disco Mariner on or about May-June 1982 in the District of Massachusetts. Nothing in this agreement will preclude the prosecution of Robert Kenney for any serious violent crime should such become known through statements of Kenney or otherwise. If Robert Kenney shall fail in any way to cooperate fully, honestly, truthfully, and completely, the government will release from its commitments herein, and this agreement will be null and void. The determination of whether Robert Kenney has given full, complete, truthful accounting and of criminal activity described in paragraphs 3 and 4 above, whether he has testified fully, truthfully, voluntarily, as described in paragraphs 3 and 4 above, shall be made solely by the office of the United States Attorney for the District of Maine. But if a determination is made that Robert Kenney has not cooperated, it shall be based upon some articulable facts. It is understood that at the time of sentencing, the government is free to make whatever recommendation it deems appropriate with respect to both the Maine and Massachusetts indictments. Assuming that Robert Kenney fully cooperates as outlined in this agreement, and should the sentencing judge deem imprisonment appropriate, the government will support a request for a specific designation as to the place of imprisonment. Further, the government agrees to make known to the judge the full nature and extent of Robert Kenney's cooperation and any other information relative to sentencing. Robert Kenney further promises not to divulge the contents of this agreement or make known his cooperation with the government to anyone other than his attorney, Richard Estabrook, or other government agents until the indictments referred to in paragraph 2 have been made public. Nothing in this agreement will prevent the United States from instituting prosecution of Robert Kenney for perjury, false statement, or false declaration if Robert Kenney commits such acts in connection with this agreement or otherwise. Additionally, Robert Kenney understands that the United States will not tolerate any further violations of federal or state law by him, and should any become known, nothing in this agreement will preclude prosecution of Robert Kenney by appropriate authorities for such violations. Robert Kenney understands that there are no further or other agreements, either express or implied, other than those contained in this agreement. Robert Kenney's signature in the spaces designated signify his full and voluntary acceptance of this agreement. Dated 2/1/84. I have read this agreement and carefully reviewed every part of it with my attorney. I understand it and I voluntarily agree to that. Robert Kenney.